When Ferrari swapped Lewis Hamilton's race engineer over the winter, it was meant to be temporary. A fill-in, a few weekends until the full-time hire showed up. At least, that was the plan. 5 months later, that same fill-in is standing on the Barcelona podium next to him, and Hamilton is calling him the reason he fell back in love with driving. His name is Carlo Santi. And what he said over the radio on lap 39 is the part nobody got to hear. If you had walked through the Ferrari garage back in January and pointed at the quiet man in the red shirt near the back, almost nobody would have told you he mattered to the title fight. He was not the headline. He was not even meant to be in that seat for long. Ferrari had already lined up a full-time race engineer for Hamilton, a well-known name being brought over from McLaren. Santi was the fill-in, a safe pair of hands to cover the early rounds while the real hire got settled. The whole deal was written in pencil, and everyone inside the team knew it. Santi is not new to Ferrari, though. He has been inside that team for years, running their remote engineering room, the bank of screens back at the factory that feeds the pit wall live during every race. Long before that, he sat on the timing stand for Kimi Räikkönen. He is 52 years old, from Verona, and he is the kind of engineer who has spent a whole career one step out of the camera shot. Steady and low-key, the exact opposite of a gamble. And yet the gamble is exactly what this turned into. Because Hamilton did not click with the man who was supposed to replace Santi. He clicked with Santi. The short-term fix quietly became the full-time partnership. Hamilton started calling him his Italian Bono, a nod to Peter Bonington, the engineer who guided him through almost every great day of his Mercedes years. That is not a small thing for Hamilton to say. That voice in his ear has always been the one steady thing in the best moments of his career. He has said this new partnership lit something back up in him, that the two of them did not even know each other at the start of the year, that they simply met and got on straight away. And now there is a new voice in his ear, and it just talked him to a win. This choice, the one to keep the fill-in, seemed small at the time. It was not. To understand why that radio channel matters so much, you have to understand how bad things had gotten. Hamilton had not won a Formula One race in a very long time. His last win came at the Belgian Grand Prix in 2024 with Mercedes before the Ferrari move was even public. By the time he lined up in Barcelona, 686 days had passed without him standing on the top step. For a 7-time world champion, that is not a slump, that is a different life. His first ever win had come back in 2007. To still be chasing race wins nearly 20 years later should be a victory lap. Instead, it had started to feel like an ending. The move to Ferrari was supposed to fix that, and at first it did the opposite. The early part of the season was hard on him in a way few people outside the team really saw. There is a reason for that, and it goes back further than this year. During testing the winter before, Hamilton had a heavy crash at this very track, and the injury from it took months to fully heal. He has talked about having to unplug from all of it, reset over the Christmas break, and come back training harder than he had in years. So the man who showed up to the early rounds was not just learning a new car, he was rebuilding himself at the same time. And on track it showed. He was off the pace, fed up on the radio, openly asking whether the car suited him at all. There were weekends where he sounded like a man running out of reasons to believe the project would work. The dream signing and the dream team had turned into the hardest stretch of his racing life. So when the paddock rolled into Spain, almost nobody was talking about Hamilton as a winner. They were talking about whether the gap to his own teammate was getting embarrassing. The story going in was downhill, not a comeback. That is the background the radio call landed against. Keep that in your head, because it changes everything about what happened next. The first sign that this weekend would be different came on Saturday, and it came from the cockpit, not the pit wall. Hamilton had every reason to be nowhere near the front. He had skipped the first practice session fully, handing his car to a young Ferrari junior, so he was already down on track time. Through the rest of practice, he looked average at best. In one session, he was more than a second off the quickest car. He himself admitted that all weekend the team had been around 0.4 of a second behind the front. At one point, he simply left the track, went back to his room, and reset his whole plan for the weekend. Then he came back out and topped the opening part of qualifying, and the turnaround held all the way through. The same driver who had been a second off the pace put the red Ferrari on the front row. He took second on the grid, missing pole to George Russell's Mercedes by 0.06 of a second. 0.06. That is the blink of an eye. It was Hamilton's first front row start in Ferrari colours, and on a weekend where the car had been fighting him the whole way, closing a 0.4 gap down to less than a tenth was not luck. It was a driver dragging time out of a car that did not want to give it. The difference told you something. While Hamilton was clawing onto the front row, his teammate Charles Leclerc crashed in the final part of qualifying and would start back in 10th. Same car, same upgrades, wildly different Saturday. The driver everyone had counted out was suddenly the Ferrari with the best track position on the grid. But a good grid slot is not a win. Russell still had pole. The Mercedes was quick in a straight line all weekend, and Barcelona is a track where leading from the front is supposed to be the safe, simple way to control a race. On paper, Russell had the better hand. Hamilton needed something more than pace. He needed a plan that did not lean on simply being faster than the car in front. That plan started before the lights even went out. Ferrari put Hamilton on the softest tyre on the grid for the start, the only one of the leading runners to gamble on it. It was a bold choice. Soft tyres give you grip early and then fall away fast, which meant Ferrari was going all in on a race built on movement, on pit stops, on pushing hard rather than waiting. The launch itself did not win him the place. Russell still led into the first corner. But the soft tyre was never really about the start. It was about setting up everything that came after. They were not planning to sit behind Russell and hope. They were planning to attack the race from the inside. While the cameras stayed locked on the front too, the real work was happening on the timing screens. Hamilton was the first of the leaders to dive into the pits on lap 11, switching off those soft tyres before they fell away. That early stop did something clever. It pushed Russell to respond, to come in a lap later than he wanted to, giving up a piece of his control without ever being passed on track. Hamilton had not passed him. He had simply made him blink. That was only round one. Then came the second stop, and this is where Ferrari fully went for the bold plan. Around lap 27, they brought Hamilton in again and put on the medium tyre, locking themselves into a 3-stop race while the cars around them were trying to make 2 stops work. This was the plan they had kept in their back pocket. On paper, 3 stops is slower. You lose time in the pit lane every single visit. The only way it pays off is if you can drive fast enough on fresher tyres to win back everything you spent, and then some. And Hamilton could. On those medium tyres, he was closing the gap at a rate that should not have been possible, pulling back more than 2 seconds a lap on the cars ahead. The plan that looked slower on a spreadsheet was turning into the fastest way through the race, because the man driving it was finding lap time nobody expected him to have. The plan and the driver were finally pulling in the same direction. Everything was in place. Hamilton just did not know yet what everything was leading to. Back on track, with the leaders trading stops, one number on the timing screen was about to change the whole race. That brings us to lap 39, the exact moment this video is about. The moment the cameras did not show you. Up ahead, the championship leader, Kimi Antonelli, pulled into the pits for his own stop. The moment he did, the timing screens flipped. Hamilton, on track, in clean air, was now the leader of the Spanish Grand Prix. And in that exact window, Santi got on the radio. He did not tell Hamilton to control the gap. He did not tell him to bring it home safe. He told him the opposite. He told him this was their race, that they were going to run another 7 laps on this set of tyres, and that he needed to give everything in those 7 laps because this was the moment that mattered and they had their chance. That was the briefing, not a secret file, not a hidden plan leaked later. A calm voice picking the exact right second to tell a driver who had spent 2 years doubting himself that the moment was now and it belonged to him. Think about what that does to a person in that seat. For months, the radio had carried stress and bad news. Now, it carried belief. 7 laps, everything he had, the race theirs to take. Hamilton answered it, the only way that mattered, by going faster. The reason those 7 laps mattered so much was what was coming next. Because right as Hamilton was hammering them in, the race handed Ferrari a gift, and Santi was ready for it. An Aston Martin stopped out on track, and the race went under a virtual safety car, which slows the whole field down at once. In that situation, a pit stop costs you far less time than normal, because everyone else is crawling too. Most teams hold back in that moment. Ferrari did not. The call came right away to bring Hamilton in for his final stop, while the field was slowed. Santi kept talking the whole way through it, telling him to stay positive, then to box, then to watch for the slow cars he would rejoin among, and warning him the fight with Russell would come right at the pit exit. Hamilton dropped back onto the track, looked up, and he was still in front. He got on the radio and called it a great job. The cheap stop under the safety car had kept the lead safe that those 7 hard laps had built. That was the whole point of the push. Without those laps, the stop hands the lead to Russell. With them, Hamilton stayed in clean air, ahead, and gone. From there, it was open road. Hamilton pulled away from Russell with the same pace he had shown all afternoon and crossed the line first by almost 20 seconds. His first win for Ferrari. His 106th Grand Prix win. It was also Ferrari's first win of the entire 2026 season, the moment a team that had been promising and falling short finally delivered. At 41 years old, he became the oldest driver to win a Formula One race since 1970. And behind him, Russell and Lando Norris completed an all-British podium, the first time 3 British drivers had shared one since 1968, the days of Jackie Stewart, Graham Hill and John Surtees. If you are getting value out of this breakdown of how the win actually happened, take 1 second and subscribe. This channel goes deep on the Hamilton-Ferrari story every single week, and the next chapter is already coming. Alright, here is where it gets tricky. Hamilton has the win, but there is an argument about it that will not go away, and it is worth settling properly. Did the safety car hand him the win? It is the easy story to tell, but the people closest to the race do not buy it, and that is the part that matters. The Ferrari boss said afterward they would have won anyway, just by a smaller gap. Russell, who finished second to him, called Hamilton's pace insane and said he would have come through anyway. The data backs them up. Hamilton was lapping so much quicker in that final run that he was on course to catch and pass Russell on track, even if the safety car had never come out, somewhere around 10 laps from the end. The stop made it comfortable. It did not make it happen. If that sounds like a small detail, keep watching, because it is the whole point of why this win counts. And here is why that difference should matter to anyone following this title fight. If the safety car won the race, it was a fluke, a one-off, something that will not come again. But if the win came from a faster car, a sharper call, and a driver who has found his edge again, then it changes everything about what comes next. It means the next time these cars line up, Hamilton is a real threat to win in his own right. That is the difference between a nice afternoon and a turning point, and the radio call is the proof it was the second one. Spare a thought for Russell too, because he did very little wrong. He took pole, he led, he ran a plan that should have worked, and he still ended up watching a red car disappear up the road. Some races you lose because you made a mistake. This was not one of them. He lost because the team on the other side of the garage built a better afternoon, lap by lap, call by call. It was a defeat dealt with a calculator, not a hammer, and those are the hardest kind to answer. What made it happen was underneath the car, and around it, long before Sunday. Ferrari brought their biggest upgrade of the season to Barcelona, the largest package anyone on the grid carried into that weekend. A new front wing and nose, reshaped side pods, and a fully rebuilt floor remade from its leading edge all the way to the back. Even a rival team boss called it a monster of an update. A rival design boss went further and called the upgraded Ferrari the best chassis in the field, the quickest car through the medium-speed corners that shape a lap at Barcelona. There were quieter changes too. New rear-wheel rims built to keep heat away from the tyres, the kind of hidden detail that never makes a highlight reel but wins races in the closing laps. Rival teams are already expected to copy it. The car Hamilton drove in Spain was a truly different machine from the one that had fought him all year. So the real reason behind that win is not one thing. It is a faster car, a braver plan, and a driver who finally trusted the voice telling him to attack. The radio call is the window into all of it. It is the moment you can actually hear the partnership working, the engineer and the driver thinking as one, exactly when it counted most. The team will tell you, rightly, that no single person wins a race like this. Even the Ferrari boss has said he does not want to put Santi out in front of everyone, that it took the whole factory. But he has also said the fit between these two is a good one. The thing nobody planned, working better than the thing they did. There is a knock-on effect inside Ferrari too. For most of the season, the talk had been about whether Leclerc was simply the faster Ferrari driver, the one the team should build around. A weekend like Barcelona changes that talk overnight. Leclerc crashed out of qualifying and finished nowhere. Hamilton put it on the front row and won. Suddenly the driver who looked like the junior partner is the one winning trophies, and the man who was supposed to lead the team has questions of his own to answer. One race does not settle that fight, but it opened it back up. And the timing of that win could not have been more cruel for the man at the top of the championship. Kimi Antonelli, the 19-year-old leading the title race, had been the story of the season up to this point. He had won 5 races in a row, including Monaco just the week before, and he had built a lead that was starting to look like it might wrap up the title early. In Barcelona, he was having a quieter day, but he was still moving up, back up to second in the closing laps, passing Russell on lap 61. And then, On lap 62 of 66, with the podium in reach, his Mercedes simply shut down. An electrical failure. He rolled to a stop with 4 laps to go and scored nothing. It was the second time this season a works Mercedes had failed on track. The first had stopped Russell in Canada. 2 breakdowns in the space of a few races starts to look less like bad luck and more like a pattern, the kind that quietly decides championship. Mercedes still leads the constructors' fight, but a team that cannot trust its own cars to finish is a team carrying a problem no speed can fix. And the timing could not be worse, with Ferrari about to bring more power to the fight. Do the math on what that meant. Hamilton takes the most from the weekend. Antonelli takes nothing. In the space of a single lap, the championship lead that had looked so solid dropped from 59 points down to 41. And there is a second number that matters just as much. Hamilton did not just win a race. He moved up to second in the championship, on 115 points to Antonelli's 156, the closest chaser to the leader he was chasing. The gap is still real. Antonelli is still in front, his Mercedes still leads the constructors' fight, and there is a long way to go. But for the first time all year, the leader looked beatable, and the man chasing him looked like a winner again. A 5-race streak running into a single failed engine, on the same afternoon his rival finally clicked, is the kind of swing a whole season can turn on. When it was over, Hamilton came on the radio one more time, and this time it was not about the plan. He thanked the team back at the factory in Italian. He thanked the fans. And then he said something that landed harder than any lap time. He thanked them, in his own words, for continuing to remind him who he is. After the hardest stretch of his career, that was the line. It carried no swagger, only thanks for being remembered as a winner when he had started to forget it himself. Carlo Santi was on that podium with him. The fill-in, the short-term fix who was supposed to be gone by now, holding the trophy next to the driver he was never meant to keep. 5 months earlier, the plan was for someone else to be standing there. Instead, it was the quiet man from the back of the garage, the one nobody pointed at in January, the voice that picked the perfect second to say, "This is our race." So the next time someone tells you the safety car won Hamilton his first Ferrari race, you will know where to point them. Point them at lap 39. Point them at the man Ferrari almost replaced, who is now the reason Lewis Hamilton sits 41 points back instead of out of it, and the reason the title fight is alive again heading into Austria. And Austria is where this gets interesting, because Ferrari is not done. There is an engine upgrade the team has been holding back, the kind of change that could close the gap to Mercedes on exactly the power tracks where Hamilton has been losing time all year. Pair a stronger engine with the partnership that just won in Spain, and the 41-point gap stops looking like a wall and starts looking like a target. Antonelli still holds every edge. But for the first time, the leader has something behind him that did not exist a month ago. A Hamilton who believes again, and a voice in his ear that knows exactly when to tell him to go. If you want to see where this goes next, the engine upgrade Ferrari has been hiding, the Austria showdown, and the rest of this title fight, subscribe and stick around. This is where the full story gets told, lap by lap.